Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another scene set in the Desert Dark Crusade Season 2. This evening, we focus the scene on a very, 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 very small Lysander. One could even call her a little Lysander. Tonight, along the dusty roads of Odessa, brimming with an unhealthy amount of city watch guards and militia, kicking up dirt and dragging away scum, Eirene has been summoned. By the Scourge of the Domain, Aravnos Ancilla, known as Nirav. A man of Arabian descent, middling height but quite bulky, and known for finding his way around the streets of Odessa and moving what needs to be moved and shaking what needs to be shook. He has summoned Eirene to his domain within Riverside. Within a rather humble compound in the north side of the district. How to say, what would appear to be a stock house that is entirely empty, but otherwise quite surprisingly clean. It's not. It's it looks as if it's abandoned. But yes, that is where we begin our scene. Just outside this seemingly empty building, this stock house, where goods and wares were once kept, but no longer. An odd and unfitting location for one such as Eirene.
Yeah. It's definitely not a place where she goes wearing her usual clothing, because that stands out quite a lot. So she has a sort of dark cape that she has pulled over her head, the hood at least, not the entire cape, of course. And she is slowly approaching this area. She is staying a little bit in the shadows. Though she doesn't necessarily appear to be afraid, she seems mainly cautious, not wanting to disrupt the delicate balance in Riverside. And she'll approach this house and she'll just look for door or the door frame to knock on.
Ooh, this kind of massing brute of a man opens the door. He's dressed in fairly loose garments, a sort of white, slightly dusty shirt, and tucked into brown trousers. Both of them, he wears a large apron, the sort of thing you'd expect a blacksmith to wear. It's very thick and leathery.
Okay.
Um, it too is a little bit dusty around its edges, probably having collected a bit of dust, as if the man has recently been traveling. Uh, You don't see any, but you can smell the faintest the faintest hint of blood upon the apron and the man's hands. He wears what appear to be uh, rough, slightly torn gloves. They look a bit more like mittens. Uh, he's about 7.5 foot tall. He is huge, and he has the muscle to back it up. The man kind of looks as if he's just made of muscle more than anything else. He's got the very cauliflower ears. Looks like he's in his late 30s, maybe early 40s. Uh, Caucasian and slowly balding over. And he'll just say, "Ah, man, good to see you." He kind of just peers out, and he doesn't really take much effort. He kind of looms just straight over you, but he doesn't look at you. He kind of looks around you, just to see if there are any guards nearby.
There
If
are
you
not.
would please come on in.
Irene actually does not look that much impressed by all his muscles. She's pretty sure she could handle him.
Yeah, you have ponies. But by mortal standards, this guy could probably lift up 2 or 3 people
Oh
without that
yeah.
much effort. He could probably,
So
yeah.
yeah, she'll nod politely. She won't bow. And she will follow him in.
Hmm. Um, he closes the door, and you see him uh, set up 3 locks on the door. And yes, you see on a stool in the middle of this empty room. Uh, the only thing really that stands out about it are the mantles on the walls that hold the torches that keep the room lit. Uh, and a candle resting in a very small uh, metal plate um, in the middle, at the center of a table in the middle of the room. The Scourge sits on the stool at one end. There is a much nicer chair for you, the other. Sorry about the lack of refinements.
Irene will walk up, will curtsy for the Scourge, of course.
Well,
Um,
I'm happy to see that you're smart enough not to come dressed like royalty.
this is not my first time in Riverside, sir. Are the locks to keep the trouble out, or to keep it in?
A bit of both, really. Never know when someone will fly off the handle or a guy gets a bit too curious.
Hmm. Well, thank you for inviting me to your domain.
You're not exactly seeing it in all its glory, but that's neither here nor there. It's just a place where we can be ourselves.
I think you and I both know that glory does not necessarily come with glitter and gold.
Well, what do you know? Looks like we're fast friends. He kind of smirks underneath his sort of coverings, but you really only see by the motion uh, that the balaclava makes. Take a seat. Left the best for you.
Thank you. It's not the view that I come here for. Nor did I come here for a simple chit chat. I am intruding on your, well, solitude because I have some inquiries to make. I was hoping you could help me with this.
It is my solemn duty.
Indeed.
I did receive your letter.
Yes. Someone has been feeding in my domain. And it is someone that, from the description that I have, I do not recognize as being part of our prince's court.
Hmm.
But perhaps I am mistaken, and I would not want to falsely accuse someone.
You sound as if you have a name in mind.
No, I do not. As I said, the description does not match anyone I know. I would not falsely accuse anyone.
Well, I'm glad to see that you're doing it all very much in the appropriate fashion. Someone has breached your domain.
Yes.
How did you come to acquire this information?
I noticed feeding was getting harder. People were, well, lacking the vigor in their steps. I have a small amount of knowledge to physical condition of mortals. So I found a servant who was willing to answer some questions. And I found out that she was taken somewhere, as have more people from my domain. All young women. My ghoul also gave me the same information. They were led by a male. Apparently Arabic. No beard. Wearing.
Oh, he doesn't have a beard, I know the guy.
I know the description is vague. I do it. what I can. Apparently he had a military armor with, well, sigils on it that I do not recognize, nor did my servants give me any. They did not recognize it either. He brought them to another place in, well, Noble's Quarter, fed upon them, and let them go. And Irene will go into like further descriptions, but I'll have to rewatch the scene to give
That's
the
fine.
exact.
Hmm.
I said I do not recognize him, but perhaps you have heard that the prince has been introduced to such an individual.
The prince makes it a point to keep me in the know regarding such things, obviously, as it is relevant to my own my own role within the domain. But no one is really meeting the criteria. What else did you find out other than the description of the man? You said you noticed multiple people in your domain seem to be sickly. Sounds as if they've been feeding within your domain for a while.
Yes. I said they were all young women. And this individual used the, well, the art of dominate on them to get them to cooperate.
If they're using discipline so liberally, then it probably means they're having difficulty finding targets. Most likely the impetus for them breaching your domain to begin with. Which means they're probably not actually that old.
Perhaps so. I do not know if other Knight's domain has been breached, but
I tend to handle each instance of case separately.
I understand.
But no one matching that description has been found to have breached anyone else's domain without having been caught and reprimanded. So, are you aware of any general pattern as to their movements?
Mm, all I know is that they've been brought to the same house inside the Noble's Quarter.
He blinks once. Like it's a fairly long blink, as in, huh. This sort of look he gives. Um, hmm.
I have a servant who can show me the way there, but I did not want to go ahead before I had at least inquired if you had met someone matching this description.
If they're stupid, if they're not stupid, that won't be their primary haven. Have you inquired as to whether the building is inhabited? I assume, given the rather upscale nature of the neighborhood, that abandoned buildings would not be allowed to stand.
Hmm. I did ask if she saw anyone else. Chris, out of character, I do not know the answer to that anymore.
I don't believe you ever inquired.
I did. Now I'm starting to doubt my own.
I didn't see any blue books about it, because I know it wasn't something.
I thought I asked it in the scene.
Yeah, I know I didn't give you much information in the scene because it was like you're just asking about the house and you're not really. It's not
Maybe.
really information you have on hand, if you understand. Like it's kind of a random ass house.
Yeah.
You don't know everybody that lives in the Nichols district, just the
Oh.
important people. You know, the people that actually matter, not these like scum of the earth client families, the pretend nobles.
Yeah.
But yeah. Um, so Irene doesn't really know too much about the house itself.
No. I mean, shakes her head slowly. She says, I've not. I did ask if there was anyone with him, but I did not ask anything much about the house. This is not something that I am accustomed to do. I am not a hound nor a sheriff or a scourge, nor even an investigator.
I don't really consider that a justification for anything, but it's not really anything to be concerned of.
Each of us has a talent. An investigation like this is not one of mine yet. But I will make the, well, inquiries.
I'll do it.
Of course, I realize that it could have been someone of the courts hiding under the mantle of obfuscation, but
Always possible. But this figure appears to be acting in a rather obvious fashion.
yes,
I would not consider them to be particularly old, considering that other much older creatures have inhabited this city and have been able to breach the domain very much underneath our noses.
that is definitely true.
This figure appears considerably less skilled.
Do you think there might be the possibility that they want me to go there?
The fact that repeated feedings have taken place within that particular house does indicate that they either feel very secure there or that it is, in fact, a means of baiting the would-be owner of the domain or other authority figures. We cannot assume they are even aware that they are breaching the domain, but they would definitely be aware that they are breaching the princes. That knowledge is very much public to, well, the world.
Of course. In your experienced mind, what is the best course of action that I could take right now?
Right now, you don't want to spook your quarry, so it might actually be best to let me handle part of the investigation. If you start talking to nobles, this figure appears to at least have some vague connection to them, considering that they live within that area, or at least have a home there, a haven, which means asking around may alert them in turn, alert their own sources. Have another means of keeping an eye on this haven without alerting them to your presence or mine. If they use this place for feeding, then they'll likely be using it again. And if not, then we can conclude that they've at least moved on from that area. And there's always something to find.
So I should do nothing.
You sound jaded.
It's not something I'm necessarily used to.
You don't sound used to a lot of things. Honestly, I thought you'd be happy. Most people are quite jubilant when I tell them I'll handle it from here. But if you're so insistent, there is something I can have you help with.
I can't imagine any Canite not wanting to know who is reaching their domain. But if you
No, but
say,
they're usually content to leave it to others to figure it out for them, at least when they've made the report. Nonetheless, there is something that will make resolving of this incident far easier and less dangerous to the silence.
yes?
While I can make my way into the Nibbles district with a great degree of ease, the aftermath will require a substantial amount of cleanup that will be more complicated for me to handle than I believe it would be for yourself. And, of course, apprehending the individual will be a far smoother process if I'm accompanied by someone who is welcome within the area. I'm sure you can imagine my folk are not exactly the most celebrated of peoples.
I would be more than happy to either accompany you or help with any form of cleanup that is necessary.
And an extra pair of hands is always useful, particularly if they're the pair of hands that owns the domain and knows the domain. I'll have some friends keep watch of the haven. In the meantime, I'll be doing some investigation in the surrounding area.
All right?
During that time, See if you can find any more of these feeding victims. See if you can corroborate what you have acquired, the information you have acquired with them. Memories can be fickle things.
Very true so. As you wish, my Scourge.
I'll call on you when it is time for us to apprehend this domain breacher. But you can trust me when I say it will not take very long. I would not have you allow your domain to be breached any further than it already has been. I take my position quite seriously. I only ask you for wait because I do not wish for this quarry of ours to gain the upper hand and continue their crimes in another part of the domain.
I understand and I agree. It is
The
better
game,
to...
oh, sorry.
Please go ahead.
The game of cat and mouse is amusing, but such a thing cannot be allowed to compromise the domain, besides.
I think the mouse will feel differently about that.
Well, what did she say?
I think the mouse will feel differently about that.
Uh, that mouse broke into your home.
Yes.
You're not obliged to feel particularly guilty for it. Actually, you wouldn't say guilty, pity for it. I certainly don't.
I wonder what would drive someone to do something like that. Not just breaking into my domain, but apparently breaking into the city's domain as well.
Desperation, overconfidence. I find those are the two most common motivations.
If it's the first, then
Nonetheless, that's no excuse for either hatred or sympathy. After all, how does a shepherd approach a wolf that hunts his flock? You don't hate the wolf, you just kill it.
hmm. But we are not wolves, nor are we shepherds.
Oh, we are both.
I think we can be both, or neither.
We are wolves, shepherds, and sheep. All in one. Something I think we'll come to learn soon enough.
Well, let's hope that this wolf has not been chased here because of a bigger wolf. I think we've had quite enough of that lately.
True. My job is already hard enough without unruly ancients running around. Let's hope this dish is more palatable for us.
Well, if there's anything I can do in return for your service, please feel free to ask.
And as I said, I will. Is there anything else you wish to discuss with me?
No, sir, I've taken up quite enough of your time already. And Irene will
Yes.
rise.
And I think Riverside has taken up enough of yours. I shall be seeing you in the next few nights. Stay vigilant.
I will do my best. And Irene will curtsy.
He will stare at you before slowly fragmenting into glass and then slowly apparating from you. Well, the fragments, as the fragments slowly apparate from you,
Yeah,
and there is just a chair.
it's not like Irene didn't totally see that coming. So, yeah, she'll turn around and walk to the door. And we'll wait for it to be unlocked.
Uh, large
Unless.
gentleman opens the door.
Mhm.
He just says, "Pleasure having you, madam."
Thank you for your time, sir. She'll like
It's
give
at
him
my
a.
pleasure. Yes.
She'll give
Have
him
a
a silver
lovely
coin.
evening.
Thank you, likewise. Yeah, like I said, she'll hand him a silver coin and be on her way.
Oh, you're too kind, miss.
It's not the first time I've heard that. Oh
Well, in
no,
any
she.
case, you have my earnest gratitude. I'll have a pleasant night.
And to you.
Oh boy, and he'll close the door, and
Mm-hmm.
you kind of hear the locks click and snap into place again. You wonder if he intends to sleep there tonight. That room was empty. It's a bit concerning, but yeah, you are free to leave, and you're not exactly going to be harassed by anyone, as you are quite welcome to traverse the night unhindered by the militia and the watch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with that, we'll end this scene. And thank you for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. We'll see you all next time.